social emotional growth of each student through a supportive, collaborative, innovative, and challenging environment. Students will develop into self-motivated, resilient, lifelong learners who embrace their role as responsible contributors to a global community. This meeting is being recorded by WACA Cable TV. Our order of business includes our call to order, our opening procedures, our agenda review and adoption. We'll have some time for public comment, and our administrative items this evening include the COVID-19 update, the waiving of graduation requirements policy IKF, a vote, refund of FY20 bus fees, vote, update on the FY20 budget, payment of EDP nutrition and pre-K wages through June 18, 2020, vote, update on FY21 budget projections, update from the Pittaway and Warren schools, assistant superintendent's report, warrant approvals. The consent actions include approval of the minutes of April 22nd, 2020 and April 14th, 2020, the tri-board meeting. We will accept gifts and donations if there are any, and committee reports and activities, member updates, action items, and then we will move to enter into executive session under GLC 30A Section 21A2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, to conduct collective bargaining sessions, Ashland Educators Association, teacher, nurse, education, support personnel contracts, Ashland secretaries contract, and Ashland schools custodian and maintenance contract, or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And 3, to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, not to return into open session. Ashland Educators Association, teacher, nurse, education support personnel contracts, Ashland secretaries contract, and Ashland schools custodian and maintenance contract. And then we will adjourn. Is everybody okay with this order of business this evening?
Yes.
I'll take a roll call to see who's here, and you can confirm then if you're okay with the agenda. Paul Kendall.
Aye, I'm good.
Mark Terry.
Aye.
Kathy Bates.
Aye, yes.
Erin Williams.
Aye.
Excellent. And I'm sorry. Oh, myself. Yes, I agree with everything I just said. And as well, I'm going to read our rules for participation in this Zoom format that we've been utilizing. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we're utilizing the Zoom conferencing platform to conduct our meeting, and all board committee members are participating remotely. The goal is to maintain the spirit of the open meeting law, providing access and transparency to all proceedings. When appropriate, efforts will be made to allow for public participation through the Zoom platform. Your patience with any technical difficulties is appreciated as we conduct meetings in this new way. I will first ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment now before we get started. Mr. Disoni? I see you. I think we just need to unmute you. Let's see.
I can be heard.
There you go.
Okay. I'd like to mention one thing I read in the newspaper today, that I'd like to compliment whoever did the signs for the 2020 graduation seniors and put them up in their yards. I saw that in the paper, and I drove by one, and they look professionally done. And I'd like to say, good class thing to do, whoever did it, and who can explain what happened. Please explain what happened, and it was a good idea. Thank you.
Ms. St. Clair?
Kelly, do you want to talk about that?
Happy to. That was an idea that several of us had seen around a few other towns on social media, and a parent had approached asking us if we were interested, as well as our Jostens rep. So Jostens is the company that we use to do all our caps and gowns and diplomas, etc. So they reached out to the local company they use to make signs, and the two of them worked together to make sure the signs were created for us at a very reasonable rate, well below what they would typically do when they do these signs at graduation time. And then the senior class provided the funds, agreed to use some of their funds that they're unfortunately not going to be able to use for senior week to pay for the signs. But we also received a large number of parent donations to help support it. And we had about 20 teachers that went out and put the signs in seniors' yards last Friday morning. And we're very grateful to Linda Cheney, who's the front office secretary, because she took the whole senior class and divided them up geographically. So we had lists of where to go that were all in the same neighborhood.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. And then I will move over to you, Mr. Adams, if you want to give your update.
Sure. Couple things. One, we did talk about last week that obviously the governor has closed schools for the remainder of the year. And at the end of last week on late Friday evening, the commissioner did send out some more recommended guidelines for what he's calling phase 3. What I would say is, after spending the weekend reviewing the document and having Mr. Vieira review it as well, and meeting yesterday with our teacher representatives, we're doing exactly what they're asking us to do at the state level, and even more. Couldn't be more proud of the stuff we're doing. There are certainly some things we're going to spend the next week or two reviewing what we've been doing and see if there are some tweaks that we can make if needed. There were two really major, well, probably three major things that came out of this. One is, as we focus on promoting kids next year, there are some standards. Obviously, in Massachusetts, we have the frameworks and standards. The commissioner just in his department just identified some specific standards, K through 12, that we may want to just focus on for the remainder of the year to help with that transition from one grade level to the next. And so we'll be working through that. There's a document that will probably go out to the staff this Friday that Paul's been creating and getting input from principals with those specific standards mapped out for our teaching staff. And then they can check to say, hey, we've already accomplished this. Okay, let's focus on this. So it just gives us a nicer roadmap, if you will. The second piece is, and this group has always brought this up, what are we doing about the kids we're not connecting with? And what are we doing with our multiple tiered support systems, or RTI, or that outreach? And Jen Cutler and Kathy Silva did a great job of pulling together. I needed to see something tangible. I knew we were doing all the things that were being asked of the commissioner already at each building level, and it was consistent. But what I asked them to do was just to document it for me, and I'll share that document with you. We were just in the review phase. We're going to meet again tomorrow as an admin team to review some of the things that we've been talking about. But I feel very comfortable and confident that we are tracking our kids, and we are outreaching from the teaching level right straight through to the principal and the district level, and providing supports as needed. And then the last thing is trying to find communication, and what is the best way to communicate with our families and our students. And that's, I think we're getting better at it every week. I think we're getting better at it. And I can't say enough about our teaching staff and the amount of time and effort they're putting in. I sent them an email this morning a little bit just saying, hey, you're working your tails off, and sometimes it's frustrating. It's tough because you want to be with kids, as we all do. But just know that you've got the support of myself, the administrative team, the school committee, because we do recognize as well that I had a teacher email me. He says, Jim, thanks for sending this, because I'm at home with 4 kids myself all day, my own 4 kids, and I'm trying to teach full time and get as much work in, and then do the same things that parents are trying to do in their own homes. So as soon as we can, build a little empathy and with our staff, it'll go a long way. And so that's really that came out of that piece, with again emphasis by the commissioner on the well-being of folks, the social emotional component, the mental health component. The secondary, or the academic component to him, to be honest, has always been secondary in everything he's talked about. And he believes, as I do, that we have great educators and we will catch our kids up. We will do that. It'll be challenging. And so that segues into met with 20 superintendents today about school year 2021. What is that going to look like? And how are we going to proceed with opening our doors in the fall, or are we? And you know, the commissioner should be providing some recommendations this week, probably towards the end of the week, and we'll then digest that and see what it looks like. But there's no guarantee it's going to be, let's open the doors come September 2nd, and all 2,800 kids are going to walk through the doors and be in classes. That's a real concern for every superintendent across the Commonwealth. And we will take it slow. We'll take a measured approach. I'm looking to pull together a task force of not only one member. This is news to admin team, was on tonight, but this is what came out of the conversation. I'd rather have it public. A task force that will include our admin team, a member, what I'd like from each site council, a member of a teacher member or representative from each building, school committee, and and some parents. The parents come from the site council and Board of Health, as well as town officials and first responders, because in transportation, nursing, all of these folks have to come together to figure out the best way to open our buildings and to then eventually have students in. There's talk of shortened schedules each day. There's talk of staggered schedules. They all come with some complexities. There's talk of, and I see Stephen is on today, there's talk of not even having a fall season for athletics, and seeing what that might look like long term. So these are all high level conversations, no answers, obviously, but we're going to continue to work through all of the potential ramifications of staying closed. Our custodial staff is now able to work full time. So we'll be pulling together in our buildings. That came out yesterday, Barbara, or 2 days ago. Yeah, 2 days ago. Department of Labor said they can come in and do work, do their summer projects, etc. Comes with a couple problems, right? Our teachers left on March 12th, and their rooms need to be cleaned out, as well as lockers of kids who have personal belongings. And so we've got to work through some of the concerns there as well. And other than that, that's really where we are today with COVID-19 and how it's impacting the schools. But our plan is to continue the remote learning approach that we are taking currently. I believe, yes, we can be better, but we can be better at everything we do. And I think the comment I want to make is I really believe that our educators, our paras, our nurses, everyone is doing their part and working really hard. And I know they're working harder probably than they've ever worked before under really extreme situation and circumstances. So kudos to them and thank them for the work they're doing. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? Okay, I don't see any, so we will move on to the next item, which is waiving of graduation requirements policy, IKF.
So as I mentioned in our last meeting, we do have students, because of the timing of the closures, we have certain graduation requirements under policy IKF as it relates specifically to our community service hours. And Ms. St. Kerr did confirm we do not have any wellness concerns. So it's just our community service. We have 22 students, Kelly. We have 22 students who may have or may not have completed their hours. They just have not actually turned those hours in because we have a form that we sign off on. So what I'm asking the school committee to do is to, for the graduating class of 2020, that we waive the requirements of the community service for graduation purposes, for diploma attainment.
Anybody have any questions or comments about that?
Laura, just curious, maybe Kelly, if you could speak to, do we have any students that are truly have done nothing in terms of their community service efforts and are getting a free pass, or is this just a matter of, there's still time left in the year, a few people had to finish off the last few hours or report what they had previously done to get credit? I mean, are we giving anybody a complete pass on this?
Probably. The requirement, so we have students that range from having completed no hours according to what our records to, having 23 of the 25 hours completed. There's students that we know, I'm looking at the list, there's kids that I know that do community service all the time but haven't turned in the sheets. So it's hard to say. I would say every year we end up with 1 to 2 students that we usually have helping set up graduation to complete their hours. So we may on this list have some students in that boat, but the vast majority have done their hours and just had a few hours left to do, or we're completely done and just haven't turned the paperwork in yet.
I can't imagine what it would be, but is there anything that we think any students could reasonably do? And I'm far less concerned about the folks that have made a good faith effort and may just be a couple short than any students that have sort of consciously blown it off and really would be scrambling to do 25 hours in the next 2 months. And I'm going to support this, I guess I'll say up front, but just there's a difference between accommodating the circumstances and just letting people get away with not having done what they're supposed to do for 4 years.
So Mark, to that point too, and I don't know how many within this 22, we have the graduation requirement of 25 hours, and it may not be modified and adjusted for kids who move into our district either, where you might have 4 years to complete those 25 hours. We may have kids who are just seniors this year and haven't completed the hours because of that.
And they'd only do 7.5 hours.
Right. So it's a balance. I will also say today the commissioner did push out his language with regard to seniors not needing to pass the MCAS. So he's waiving the MCAS requirement this year for all seniors. And we probably have a couple, 2 to 3 overall within that boat who would have had to take a retest or summer work, or as long as they're passing the classes that they would need to take the MCAS requirement in. So if they're in math class or science, that's how it reads. So again, I think it's very few kids, and if we're not going to lift the ban, through the end of the year, but seniors are done May 28th, Kelly?
Yeah, 28th or 29th. 29th.
Yeah, so they've got really less than
a month.
Yeah.
And I will say that I'm looking at the list, and it's the kids that don't have really any done are also kids that I know that are probably working 40 hours a week.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any other questions or concerns about that? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll motion. Okay.
You got it, Kathy? Go ahead.
Sure. I'll move to suspend portions of school committee policy IKF, graduation requirements related to physical education or wellness and community service requirements for the class of 2020 due to the COVID-19 school shutdown.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Erin Williams, are you here?
Aye.
Aye. Kathy Bates?
Aye.
Mark Terry?
Aye.
Paul Kendall?
Aye.
An aye for me as well. Thank you. The refund of the FY20 bus fees.
Sure. So we did talk about this at the last meeting. We didn't not take a vote on this, but as you know, Barbara and I are recommending that we offer a 63-day refund to riders, which equates to $91 per rider. And we presented the information last week, and there are two options. One is the full refund, or if families want to donate their $91 per rider, they can do that. Those would be the least. Still a lot of administrative work to be done with it, but I think that would be the best approach we would like. So Barbara, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I had given you the option of the 100% refund or the 47, I think it was 47.3% refund, because that was the savings from the new arrangement with Connolly. But I think Jim and I agree that we're looking at the 100% refund, which is $91 or $182 for a family cap.
Anybody have any questions or concerns about that?
Just have one procedural question to ask the other members of the committee. How many folks on the committee are paying the fee and might see a refund themselves? I'm just thinking about how to manage this from a conflict of interest perspective. So I know I'm sorry, Kathy?
No, I'm not getting a bus refund.
And Aaron, no?
Nope, I'm outside the 2 miles.
Right.
So to handle that, Mark, I can recuse myself because although I donated, but it'd still be.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like we have 3 people who can vote on this and 2 of us that would potentially see a refund. So with that, at least I'm probably going to recuse myself on the vote.
No,
as well.
It's a fair point. So.
Yep.
So who's left? Who can?
Kathy, Aaron, and you, Lori.
I mean, unless you paid for somebody to take the buses here.
No, but I paid for 4 kids for like 10 years and not a single one of them ever took a bus.
You don't get a refund, Lori.
It's only if you're eligible for the other conflict.
I can get the motion. Hold on. I'll motion to approve refunding. Well, is this the correct wording? Move to approve refunding a prorated portion of for the fiscal year 20 bus fee for the 63 days that school buildings will be closed due to COVID-19.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Mrs. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Chapman? Aye. And Mr. Kendall,
you should still reference us.
Yep.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Oh, we're not getting rid of you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll abstain from the vote as well.
Thank you.
I won't joke.
So that passes 3 ayes and 2 abstain.
Great. Thank you.
Could I just take a minute to update kind of the refunds in general?
Please.
So even before we got off of our meeting last week, I already had the first email from someone donating their bus fee. And I thank them very much for being the first. So I do have a number of people that have reached out. So if anyone out there is listening and you want to donate your bus refund, just send me an email and we will make that happen. The first refunds that are going out the door are the grade 5 Camp Borndale refunds. My staff is entering those now. The next ones will be the Washington, D.C. And then the bus fees will be a combination of, if you paid electronically, you'll be refunded electronically. And if you paid by check, you'll get a check in the mail. So we're working on all of them currently.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Next up, an update on the FY20 budget.
Sure. So Barbara will chime in here as well. I think it's important that we understand where we are in terms of the appropriation for FY20, as it will help frame and hopefully the next topic, which is the vote with regard to paying EDP, nutrition, and pre-K wages. I believe we're in really good shape towards this time of year in terms of things that have been encumbered and paid, and potential cost savings that we've seen throughout. And including any overtime for custodians, bus duty salaries, substitute teachers, things of that nature. And if we move forward, I think, Barbara, we got probably about $123,000 left in the operating fund at this point for unexpected costs for the remainder of the year. As you know, we will be certainly providing a lot of support to our custodial and maintenance staff for cleaning and things of that nature. So,
Jim, I'm gonna say that right now I have a higher available balance than that.
Okay.
Right now I'm looking at about $234,000.
Okay.
And that's because I put the new out of district cost on the sheet, but as I mentioned to you late Monday, I'm moving that to the circuit breaker fund. So general fund is not going to be paying for that out of district tuition.
Okay. That
was an additional savings.
Okay.
So right now I have us, if you vote the salaries, if you approve them, about $234,000. We have not gone through everything. We're still looking at utilities. We're still looking at some payroll encumbrances for people that have been out on leave. So I expect this number will continue to change positive. I'm not sure how much, but I don't expect it to be going down.
So just to Barbara's point, with regard to the fund balances for FY20, we did have a student, and I've mentioned this, that we are cost sharing with Holliston that began February. Kathy, is that right? We got the decision. You know, it's a family that split family, Holliston and Ashland. This year, that $39,000 is for the remainder of the year since February. And then in FY21, we've got to pick up approximately $150,000 residential case as a cost share, and Holliston gets the other 50% of that. So just an FYI, that's why that number is new in terms of what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul.
That was 50% of 150?
No, it's 150. It's 300,000. So we are 50% of that. So we're at 150 for that, approximately.
Thank you. And that's just an FYI, right? There's no.
Yeah. I just want to keep you updated because quite often many communities are talking about, if you go next door, Natick, they're furloughing a lot of people at this point in time with their budget in hopes of having some savings for the FY21 year, or they just don't have the funding to support it because of their tax revenue. I've had really good conversations with our town manager. He feels really comfortable, and I spent some time today, or actually yesterday, with Senator Spilka's office as well. I think getting through FY20, what we've appropriated will get us through the year, and we do have that little, as Barbara said, approximately $230,000 to get us through the year if we're finding some areas where we need to spend. So that's important, you know. So. But yes, it's an FYI as it leads into the next conversation.
Yes, which is the payment of BDP, nutrition, and pre-K wages through June 18th, 2020. So
as you know, we've come to you. This is our third time coming back. We said we would continue to come back based on the closure period by the governor. And since we've finalized that June 18th will be our last day, we are asking that the school committee consider the additional payment for 7 weeks of $190,372.74. Of this, $83,000 is going to be available and paid out of the revolving accounts from nutrition, EDP, and the preschool. So we do have some funding there to offset these costs that would normally be fully offset, and that leaves a balance of about $107,358 that would have to come out of the operating funds to make those individuals whole for the remainder of the year. We believe it's the right thing to do, but it's also, we've been able to look at our savings within the budget and feel comfortable that we can do this.
And Barbara, the number you quoted is before the $230,000 balance in general operating you had quoted before. Is that before the 107,000 for this, or
That's after the 107.
After? Okay.
After, yep.
So it's really 300 and whatever thousand, and then you're
correct.
Yep. Yep.
So there's money there.
Well, there is. I mean,
again,
I'm always hesitant. We've got 2 months left in the fiscal year,
right.
And I know we think something. You know, again, when we've got a out of district student that could pop up tomorrow, and we're responsible for something, or we've got some other cost that we may have to incur. Heaven forbid with a building if something happens. So I don't think you should rely upon those funds right now, the extra. I mean, it's there, but it's a contingency for us to have moving forward.
Jim, do we have, sorry, Mark, do we have an idea of any additional costs relative to cleaning and different other things, you know, the things we've done above and beyond what we would normally be doing at this time? Anyway, do you have any idea of costs around that?
Barbara, because I know she's been talking with Joe and.
Yeah, so I don't have it tonight. I know that we're planning on bringing the custodians and maintenance staff back into the buildings on Monday. And Joe Richardson and John Murray have been working on a plan of what work they will be doing. They were hoping to get it to me tonight. I haven't seen it yet. So over the next 2 days, Jim and I will be having that discussion about what work and what needs, if any.
So I think, Paul, too, is if we've got an opportunity to create, use some of these funds for FY20, it'll hopefully then could reduce some of our expenses for FY21, because we're able to actually do some of the summer work ahead of time. If we can even get the supplies we need, I think, right, for the flooring and things of that nature. So.
I think the other thing that's relevant to this is, you know, our other option is if we don't pay people, is we have to assume that people will file for unemployment. That's not without a cost itself. It's a cost that budgetarily falls on the town side, but I think, as we've probably talked about several times, we've had a pretty good working collaborative relationship with the town, and unlike some other places, we don't tend to take the approach of, well, that's their problem, not ours. It's a collective problem, and you know, when we look at these folks that we're talking about, they're all academic year employees, which means that if they get laid off today, May 1st, they're not just going to collect unemployment for the next 6 or 7 weeks. They'll collect through the summer, which ultimately means that probably is not much savings at all by doing it. So it seems like it's probably financially advantageous, or at least close to neutral, to continue paying these employees, given that we have the resources to do it.
Other comments or questions? I mean, I support continuing to pay everybody as long as we're able, and it sounds like we can do it. So
okay. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad.
Who's got a motion?
Okay.
I'll move to
I don't have it.
continue paying EDP, nutrition, and pre-K staff the regular wages through June 18, 2020.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Aaron? Paul? Aaron said aye. I saw her.
Yeah, I saw her lips. I didn't hear her.
just so the other Aaron knows. And who did I miss? Mark?
Aye.
And Lori, aye. So that's
Great.
Thank you so much on behalf of all those employees, and I know Melissa's waving and saying thank you too, and Lisa. But
we appreciate you.
Yeah, no, we do, and I can't speak highly enough of the emails I get, that, you know, whether it's nutrition or EDP, that our parents are sharing with me is just phenomenal work they're doing, continuing to do. This is not about charity. I'm telling you, they're busting their tails off doing the everything they need to do to stay connected with our kids as well, in, you know, providing nutrition, but also the EDP sessions. And it's really great stuff. So
yeah, and that's what I was going to add. You know, is that this is different than our discussions around paying for contract services that are not being rendered and things like that. We know that the nutrition services and EDP are providing service. They are doing the thing. So
absolutely,
just for anybody listening, that's a completely different conversation relative to this. This is people that are providing services. So.
Yeah.
Good point, Paul. Thanks.
Good point, Paul.
Thank you. Okay, next up are FY21 budget projections.
So, as good as news was for FY20 that we're going to, be able to get through the year and hopefully in good shape. FY21 is not providing a rosy picture at this point in time. In my conversations with Senator Spilka's office, with town manager and his conversations with the Department of Revenue, there's clearly going to be a tremendous shock to the system with regard to loss of revenue across the Commonwealth, but also locally with regard to meals tax, excise tax, and the funds that come through the state, like Chapter 70 funding. And as you know, we were projected to get about $8 million this year from, which is a 2.5% increase over last year's Chapter 70. The initial estimation from the town level, as they went back and reviewed the last time we were in that recession period, they took a 3-year window and looked at the data in terms of the revenues lost by the town and the aid lost by the town, and it ranged anywhere from 10 to 13% across the board. So the initial projections from the town are that we're looking at a $2.4 million deficit from the budget that was passed by the select board and the school committee for FY21. And I can't emphasize enough the amount of work and time and effort that this committee, the FinCom, and the select board put into developing policy over the past 6 years, where, as you know, we've been pretty conservative with our estimates, but we're working hard towards building our stabilization fund for the town. For those who are listening, the rainy day fund or stabilization fund. And our bond rating obviously is quite high because of the work we've done. It's allowed us some flexibility within the community. But that being said, because of the thoughtful nature of this community, our boards, the taxpayers, we're in a position where now we have an opportunity to use some funds, and we'll have to rely on those funds to help with that $2.4 million deficit that we're projecting for FY21. And, I can't thank, all 3 of the boards enough for that foresight in financial planning. There are a lot of communities who will not have the same flexibility and availability of resources that the town of Ashland does. And it says a lot about this community's willingness to invest over time for the future. And that's where we are. So kudos to everyone there. That being said, there's still going to be a deficit, right, that we have to figure out. And the anticipation for the Ashland Public Schools is about a $700,000 decrease in our budget that was passed. And we will then have to figure out what that looks like. Not prepared, obviously, today to have that conversation. We do have to have some conversation in the next 2 board meetings, because we have to come up with a new budget for approval for town meeting, which will be hopefully at the end of June. So we're looking at, with that number, 700,000 of a reduction. And there are numerous ways to get there. I will say this, I am such a strong advocate for our teaching staff. Our numbers are not going down. Our numbers are if anything, are starting to increase. Aaron's already seen a number of families who are trying to get back in the system who are at private schools. And we also know that, I don't want to say trying to get back in, they're allowed to come back. I'm just saying they're already indicating that the cost of going to the private school is not going to be they're not going to be able to afford as a family anymore because of the situation. And so we will see an increased enrollment for, again, over this year. And I'm concerned greatly about the mental health of our students and our faculty coming back, no matter when we come back, and the programs that we've developed and continue to support those programs. So I want to give this some really good thought. We've had good conversations as a leadership team, and we'll continue to find a way through this and have the least amount of impact, as you know, on kids. And that's always going to be at the forefront of our decision. So that's FY21 in a real brief nutshell. Questions on that?
Just a couple things, Jim. I mean, one, I guess I want to start by saying, you know, I know I'm in no way taking issue with the projections that the town is putting together, but I think we all have to recognize that right now they're working with very limited data. They're looking kind of at what occurred in 2008 and 9, I think, predominantly to figure out some of this stuff. And they might be right, but it's just, you know, sort of relying on the best available information now. But we shouldn't operate on the assumption that it's exactly right. It may be better than that. It may be worse than that. But I think we just need to acknowledge that there's a lot of uncertainty out there about what the budgets will look like, particularly from a state aid perspective. But you know, everything is just is a projection right now, and I think there are a lot of differences between what we're dealing with right now and what we dealt with 12 years ago. So that's sort of one thing. The other more general question I guess I have for you is, and it relates back to the conversation we had a couple of minutes ago about, for example, custodial services. You know, is there any aspect of potentially reduced spending just by virtue of what might or might not be going on next year? I mean, do we see the possibility of, for example, you talked about we may be able to get into some of the buildings and do some of the summer cleaning with custodial staff earlier because students aren't there now and the buildings are closed. Do we ever use contracted services to supplement that work during the summer that presumably we won't need to do because we can have our own staff doing that? And just thinking about, you know, any potential things that fall in that category differences we work on our budget.
So 2 points. I want to go back to the point you were making with regard to we're working with data we're just not quite sure about, and these are estimates and probably conservative approaches. I will say that, again, in talking to Senator Spilka's office and looking at those numbers, there's not any good news coming out of there. There's very much a sense that this is the worst financial picture for the next 2 years that this group has seen in 20 years from an economic standpoint, because the anticipation of this shutdown and closure, even going into June, only continues to exacerbate the loss of revenues coming forward and how they're going to allocate it for FY20. It's not just FY21, but the FY20 numbers. So I agree. I think that's why our policies have been really good, that we've looked at an approach in the May town meeting, and then we've adjusted in the fall town meeting as necessary. And for us, it's benefited us greatly over 6 years, where our operating budget has actually increased every year because of our policies and the approach that we've taken to be relatively conservative with our resources. But I cannot dispute the fact that we're going blind here, but we do have to have some data points, and those data points are what we're looking at from years past. So that's point one. Point two is with the custodial and maintenance staff. That's what I was referring to with the 200,000 that we have left over, being able to use those funds to help with anything for FY20 that we wouldn't then have to use in FY21. I am concerned that our costs for custodial as well as health and wellness nursing staff will actually increase in FY21 due to COVID-19 and the procedures and processes we need to start thinking about implementing with regard to hygiene and cleaning. And so, you know, I'm concerned about that.
Could you imagine, Jim, though, like they've passed unfunded mandates before, but I feel like
Yep.
that one is one that you can't get away with.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
funding.
no, Aaron, to your point, no, I think they can mandate it and then tell you how you've got to pay for it. I mean, everything we do, and that's just the way it's going to be. It's where do you put your resources? You know, there's no other aid. It's Chapter 70, right, that comes through for the schools. And if they're saying you need to have only 25 kids or, you know, whatever, half the group in the school and separated, you got to figure it out locally how to pay for it. There may be some federal funds coming. There may not be, right? I mean, that's also, to Mark's point too, is, you know, a number of years ago, was it 2009, 10, 11, right around there, where there was some stimulus from federal government that went to the schools and were able to add jobs and do shovel-ready projects. We'll see how that plays out as well. But to think that we're going to be, you know, again, my job is to look at the entire picture long-term, not just for FY21, but I want to put us in a position where we understand we're going to have gaps for kids. We're going to have some mental health concerns for kids as well as adults in our system. And the best we can do in making sure that we have and keep our employees to meet those needs is the first task on hand for us.
Hey, Jim, going forward, I know even the state is just kind of guessing at what their FY21 revenue will look like and what that budget might look like. But is there also, you know, should we be looking to advocate to the senator and others for, you know, when they do have that limited revenue stream, where, you know, where their priorities should lie, right? And you know, more, because there's certainly lots of different places that the state funds go, and some of them can be classified as more, you know, ones that can be shelved for a year and in lieu of supporting the municipalities and the schools through the aid. So,
I can't answer anything because who knows anything right now, but I have been in touch with Pooja this week and last week, and they are interested in hearing about our specific needs and requests. She's like, do let us know, because I have shared some concerns with her, like MCAS going forward and a few other things, SEL because of what's likely coming back our way. And she's like, write it down, put it in writing, let us know. And there will be no money, so don't, you know, get too excited. So yeah. They do want to hear what our needs are, our anticipated needs, but I think they're also sounding the warning bell about there are going to be some things that they can do, but they won't be able to address all of it. She was kind of predicting some dire circumstances.
So, yeah, to that point too, Paul, I'm in constant contact with their offices, as are the local superintendents who work with within Karen and Jack's, you know, regions. That being said, I believe May 6th, I sent an email to the school committee. Karen would like us to participate and be a part of conversation she's going to have with the select board on May 6th. So it's a good opportunity there to have some dialogue with her as well.
Yeah, they do want to hear from us. They are looking at, when I explained the MCAS situation, she's like, put it in writing with details, like how many days are you going to lose on learning? How many, you know, days are you going to need to catch everybody up after what happened this year? You know, they want details and specifics, and where they can take that, I guess, is their own conversations when they start understanding the bigger financial picture.
I'm still advocating for no MCAS next year as well. But.
Well, is that what she's talking about? Laura, is that what you're talking about next year?
Yeah, those are things. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And so Jim's on it, because I obviously circled back with him and said, you know, they're looking for details, you know, what I just said. and he's on it.
Yep.
So we're going to let them have all that information, and you know, that's one thing. And then some of the other financial pieces might fit into a little bit of a different category, but in any event, I guess what I'm saying is they want to hear from us for sure, but also kind of setting the stage for, you know, be prepared to not have all your needs met, but that doesn't mean we stop advocating.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody can speak to this, or maybe it's just something to raise next week, but you know, one of the things that strikes me is, you know, we're hearing that a budget isn't going to be done at the state level at best probably till mid to late July, and that's not always that's not really abnormal. I mean, I think that happens that way fairly frequently, but when you're not looking at a negative environment, you know, you're kind of looking at, all right, you're going to be up, you know, 2% or 2.2. Here, obviously, there's more uncertainty about everything, and I'm just curious as to whether or not we're hearing any sense from the senator's office as to a goal for getting a budget completed. And if nobody knows, then maybe that's just something that we make a point of articulating either through Pooja, or if there's an opportunity at the selectmen's meeting next week to do it there.
Yeah. So Mark, Pooja yesterday told me I do not expect anything until the end of July, middle to end of July. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the latest as of yesterday. So
thank you.
Yeah.
So that's the update.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not pretty.
Okay. Pittaway and Warren School updates. Who wants to start?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to give them an opportunity like last week to give a quick update. So Pete, Sarah?
Pete.
Sure. Just to begin, just incredibly proud of the Warren staff, how they've been managing all this, managing their own families and their lives, and just staying connected with the students. The students are continuing to work hard. We're getting regular updates of everything that they're doing at home. They're sending pictures, samples of their work. And probably most importantly for a shout out right now is just the pride I have in our families. And what our parents are doing is they've become the teachers, as our teachers are sharing lessons online and sharing activities. It is truly the village that's come together. And it's just another reason why I love Ashland, and a great place to be. What our teams have been doing, similar to the other buildings, is our grade level teams continue to work together. They can't do this together in the building like they once did. So throughout several days of the week, they have their own Zoom sessions with their grade level meeting where they create a lesson plans for the week. Approach, and it is with the idea of saying, if in the event that someone on the team becomes ill, the lessons will be able to continue because the entire team is getting together and having that piece. Many of our teachers are also experimenting with some different things this week, of where they're videotaping themselves doing some lessons and then sharing it out for the grade level so that they're not redoing the same lesson 10 times at each grade level.
And Pete, I shared with the school committee the second grade team's work on that this week.
Yeah.
So they got an idea of how how that's working.
Yeah, now first and kindergarten is doing that as well now. They're putting together the videos this week. Another thing that's pretty exciting is our work with Claire Landrigan, the consultant who is working with us for our literacy initiative, obviously was put on hold. And Claire has been meeting with Mike, Claudia, Kate, myself, and Paul. And she wants to continue to work with us, and she's not accepting any payment or doing any of those pieces of just supporting our teachers of how to make sure we're creating rich literacy initiatives with our families and how to make it manageable for all families. So again, there's just a lot of pride that I have of all the amazing work that's being done and the positive attitude that people have of trying to get through this.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you to all you.
Thanks, Pete.
Yeah. Any questions, comments?
I like Pete, you do that morning thing with your dog, don't you? The morning greeting.
That's so I don't have the dance moves like Mike. So I try to deflect the
He
attention.
does, really.
Wait a minute, you're assuming actually those moves are any good.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
We all have our
No, I'm talking about my moves not being good. Yours are great. No, so it's trying to start the day with some routine and some normalcy for our families. Today, it's a quick video from my dog and myself. And then later in the day, we send a read aloud that comes from Kate or myself and a few other teachers that work with all the school that are doing that. And really, it's just trying to space them for the parents that may be hitting the wall and they just need a break for a few minutes. They can play a video for the children. And I'm really excited because just yesterday, students from the high school reached out to me, and we're in the middle of working out a project where they're going to start doing some read alouds.
That's
Can we kill two birds with one stone, Kelly, and do some of our missing volunteer work with the reading?
There you go, Erin. I like it.
It's a club that's specifically what the club members are working on.
But that's really adorable.
Which means maybe they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts instead of for trying to get credit, which is the better reason to do it.
They absolutely are. And that's been in the conversations I've been having with them. That's where they're coming from. They want to help parents right now.
Yeah. I mean, if this is not a lesson in, you know, how you can step up for community service right now, right? Like everybody can find something to do, and that includes the kids. So hopefully, regardless of whether they have a paper to sign, that they're thinking about what they can do. Okay. Who else? Where are we next?
Sarah.
Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. First and foremost, I would like to publicly thank you on behalf of all the Pittaway staff for committing to go through with the payroll through the rest of the year. I know that that's been a worry of a lot of our staff every few weeks as you've had to revisit it through all these different phases of the closure. So we're very appreciative of that. On the business side of things, I've been working with Barbara to close out our kind of tuition for those community peers that have paid tuition through the preschool, and we'll be kind of closing out that process over the next week or two. And that was nice to be able to kind of put our tuition on hold for May and June, obviously, since we're closed for those community peers, but still allow them to have that enrichment and curriculum opportunities and continue to participate with us. So that's on the finance side of things. Our staff, which we affectionately call the Pit Crew, have worked tirelessly. I echo what everyone else has said administratively wise, how proud we are of their commitment. Preschool is a whole new challenge of trying to engage remotely. As you know, their attention span is very small. Even as entertaining as we think we are on a dynamic screen, it's very different, and a well-planned lesson might have active participation of 5 to 7 minutes if we're lucky. So we've really focused collaboratively to develop, it was initially enrichment activities, but now we are moving forward in our curriculum, everyday household activities that we can embed learning that are manageable and doable with our families. And our staff have worked similar to, as Pete was just describing, to develop different activities and videos for modeling, whether it's going on a nature walk and talking about vocabulary that they see, if it's a read aloud and asking the comprehension questions, or if it's counting big and small spoons in your silverware drawer. It's really manageable, and we've gotten a lot of feedback that it's not a daunting lesson plan where they need a lot of supplies. And we're hoping that we can just encourage that everyday learning through those kind of household activities. Our families have been incredibly supportive. We've started including our participation through things like videos and sending a picture of you engaging in one of the curriculum units or activities. So we've been doing a video every week and a half where both the staff and the families are participating. We did a, we miss you from our staff initially, then the PTO and families responded with a, we appreciate you video. We then had a virtual pajama party.
That's cute.
Did a growing and changing one where we all had our baby pictures photo, and we're able to share that, which was really fun.
That's cute.
And we're moving into construction next. So people are taping videos of, replacing their driveways or construction that they see out on their walks, or building things with their recycle bins before the trash comes through. So we're really kind of trying to stay engaged that way, and trying to find ways to kind of have some closure. Pete and I have been in conversations about kindergarten transition, rescheduling screenings, things like that, to try to ease a lot of the both parents and staff concerns about transitioning up and what that will look like. So I think that those will be a lot of continued conversations, but overall, they're doing an incredible job. Our families are very, very supportive, and they want to be in front of kids. It's almost an everyday thing, like, can we do this? Can we do that? So it's hard to kind of hold them back, but they're making the best of the situation and scenario.
Well, thank you to you and to your whole entire staff. Any questions or comments for Sarah?
No, I just keep thinking I'm in such awe of all our teachers and the staff, everybody, how they've all so creative and innovative, and I'm just amazed.
Great job, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, next up is, and do we have an assistant superintendent's report today?
I just have a couple of things. Two of the things I was going to touch on, Jim touched on in terms of the power standards, and Pete touched on the work that Claire is doing with our staff. Today I had the opportunity to visit some high school classrooms, and I think it speaks to what's going on. I visited one classroom in which we had a teacher, we had a special education teacher, and we had an ESP all working with kids. And about 10 minutes into the class, one of the kids said, "Hey, a friend of mine wants to join the class." He was an Ashland High School student, and he joined the class just to be around people, albeit virtually. And he participated in the class, and the teacher let him in. So it was great going to the high school and being parts of different classes. I did attend a physics class and a calculus class, and I realized how little physics and calculus I actually remember from my high school days. It really was a complete foreign language, but it was awesome seeing the kids actually wanting to be in the classes and be involved. The other thing that I just want to highlight is Jim mentioned it at the end of his email he sent out about a survey. We pushed out a survey to staff today, and 146 people have responded. And three things just really to highlight is, one, that it was clear that staff is feeling supported by the school committee, by administration, and by building level principals. So I just wanted to, applaud people for that. One of the things they're struggling with, which isn't a surprise, is that work-life balance. The lines are blurred as to when the day starts and when the day ends, and they're struggling with that. And it really came through loud and clear that their biggest concern is making sure that they're doing enough for kids, that they're supporting kids, and that they're meeting the needs of our kids. And that came through loud and clear in the survey. So still waiting, hopefully, for another 100 people or so to finish that up. We have, like I said, about 145, but it was great feedback to get from the staff. And I think it speaks to the work that we're all doing, and to the fact that their biggest concern is, are we meeting the needs of our kids? And it wasn't about them. So that was awesome to see.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions, comments?
I just have one question for you, Paul. I really appreciate the second point you made about, sort of the when does the workday end? When does it start? Certainly can relate to that. And I'm just wondering what we can do in terms of offering strategies to people to sort of help make that break. Obviously, everybody's individual home circumstances are different, and I'm sure to the extent people are recording things, if they have small kids, they're doing it at night. But are there strategies that we can offer? And this may also be a question for Jen Cutler. That we can give them feedback and support them better.
I'll turn it over in a second to Jim and Jen, but I know Jim said today, giving them that permission to take that time off, which was important. I think a lot of people were looking for that permission. It's okay not to be on 24/7. It's okay to take a little bit of time for your mental health. But as much as you tell people that it's okay to only be on for 4 or 5 hours and to shut down at 3, 4 o'clock and go take care of yourself and your family, people just have that drive to keep on helping kids. I can't think of any strategies, Jim or Jen or principals. I don't know if you've come up with any magic wand or great ideas to be able to shut down. I know I struggle with it as well.
And Paul, just to be clear, I wasn't looking for the answer for us as much as I was for,
It answered
for
for them,
staff,
correct.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm happy to hear what others have to say.
And, you know, and I have no background or training, but I do have a few people in my family who are teachers, and I'm watching them struggle with some parts of this. You know, someone who had just gone back from maternity leave and then suddenly is back home with a new baby trying to teach an art class. Or, you know, and a few other examples that I could give you. But I just think a lot of reassurance to the teachers, you know, that we appreciate you and we know that you've got this whole other life and we've asked you to bring this life into your life. And also, you know, doing our job and reminding the public and our parents that our teachers are in that situation, and asking them to please remember to have a little bit of compassion for that as well, because everybody is doing the best that they can and they do want to be in school with the kids more than anything, but they're not. They're in their house and they have other things happening all around them, and we need to make room for that. And so I don't know, I would just like to say that I understand that, and I hope that that parents out there who are watching this will share that with your friends and try to remember that before you send a letter.
I think the biggest thing is communication. So I've been working from home for 11 years, and I've gone through sort of ups and downs of what's worked, what hasn't worked. And now at work, I'm coaching a lot of, and especially the women, but I'm coaching a lot of people on how to make work at home effective and delineate. So there's a couple things. One is using an app with either a brief timer, a Zen timer, a bell chime, whatever, that tells you to get up. Most people, if you have your Apple Watch, you can get the Breathe app, but also it'll tell you to stand. If you haven't stood within the hour, stand. It'll tell you like 10 minutes before the hour. And then setting, what we're doing at work is we set out of office hours. So for me, I take an hour and a half in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. Those are my teaching times. I ask people not to schedule meetings. So I think it's completely fine and reasonable for teachers in their communications to parents and say, look, I need to take this time in the morning, this time in the afternoon, and flip things around if need be. You know, it might not all fit. I'm thinking some of our teachers that have multiple children and, you know, have to play zone defense at home, especially with like newborns and little ones. And also giving yourself time limits. Say, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do this for an hour and that's it. And really trying to stay off the screen an hour before bedtime, because then you'll get, what happens is you'll get into it, you're doing it, you're like, oh, well, everybody's quiet, and you'll keep working. But then you can't sleep because the computer screen's screwing on with your melatonin. So that's why I end up working till midnight, 2 a.m. a lot. And that's how it happens. And so I'm telling you how to avoid it. Those are my 11 years of experience.
What do you say, Jen?
I just wanted to say, I think that one thing I've, in the conversations I've been having with counselors in the last couple of days, I think one thing that's going to really help the work-life balance for our educators is what Pete was talking about earlier and Sarah was talking about as well, with teachers sort of working smarter, not harder, really like collaborating. So like, you know, you're not all duplicating the same thing. And I think that's really, in the last few days, my counselors are saying, you know, we've noticed that now that teachers are looking at it that way, that they're seeing, okay, I feel like I could breathe a little better. So I think that's going to make a huge difference. And then I think just like we tell our kids, you know, ask for help, ask for support. I think it's really hard. I think so many of our educators are perfectionists and are really type A, want to be able to do everything, but we need to realize that, you know, it's okay to ask for support and that help. And I know every time I have my meetings with the counselors, I say at the end, okay, if you need to text me or call me, if you need to, you know, just talk it. I don't care if it's about your own family or about school, you know, this is what I'm here for. So I think that just continuing to send that message to our educators, I think is going to make a big difference.
Jim, I assume we're probably already doing everything we can, but I assume one of the challenges that a lot of them might be also facing is space in their house to do what they need to do, because they've never had to, you know, I work from home. I worked from home for a long time. I have an office in my house that is set up to do this. And I can do my work there. And yes, now I have a bunch of people running around my house that weren't there during the day before. But, you know, I assume a lot of educators had a little space to do the things they do in the evenings or whatever. But, you know, we're asking them to do the majority of their work in a space that they probably don't have. And that, you know, they have also maybe a spouse that is also now working from home. And they didn't have a space designed for that either. Is it, you know, I'm assuming we've already thought about it, but is there anything we can do as a district to help support them, whether it's with some different supplies that we can supply them, something that helps to make the space they do have and they are working in a little bit easier?
It's a good question, and the answer is no. I haven't even given that piece of it much thought. I similar to you, it's sort of I just took over a room and told my kids leave me alone. But that's all I could do. but my wife's working from the kitchen table because of it. Yeah, it's a good point. You know what? Monday night when we meet as an entire staff on Monday, and we get anywhere between 150 and 180 faculty that come on, and that'll be a question I can pose to them, Paul. I think that's a really good one. To say, how can we assist in that piece? And I appreciate that. So thank you.
And Paul, from the survey, that was one of the questions, and 40% of the people responded back saying that's one of their biggest challenges is finding a quiet space at home to work.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. I mean, that's happening in my house too.
Yeah, and we'll share. I mean, we can share the results of the survey at our next meeting as well, and that'll give you an indicator of things that are happening. So.
Master bedroom closets are really good.
He's got a master bedroom. So
they're very sound absorbent with all the clothes around. So.
I'll start crying in there.
Jim will turn into Mrs. Nebsbeth from Toy Story.
Yeah.
In the closet.
All right. Anything else on that before we move on? Thank you, everybody. Warrant approvals, Kathy, have you got them?
I do. Let me switch to my thing. Okay. All right. Between April 1st, 2020 and April 28th, 2020, I, Kathleen Bates, authorized by my email signature, should I say that? Sure. In the amount of $612,872.15. This includes general funding of $374,423.35, revolving expenses of $170,990.15, grant expenses of $25,865.59, capital $41,499.00, and meals tax expenses of $94.06. Finally, I authorized payroll in the amount of $1,064,345.89.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to the minutes. Does anybody have anything for the April 22nd minutes?
No, I don't have
I'll look for a motion, please. Anybody?
Move to approve the minutes of April 22nd, 2020 as presented.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Kathy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Lori? Aye. Thank you. And then the minutes for the tri-board meeting, that was April.
We do appreciate what they're doing. It's not easy. As someone who has a child in Mendez and a child in middle school, it spans some of the buildings. Someone who works full-time at home to begin with, and this just kind of added to my day. For those that are struggling, despite the best efforts of all our educators, it can be hard to parse the information. It can be hard to wrangle your kids to sit down and do it for a little while. Please focus on supporting your child in a positive way and not stressful way. The social emotional well-being of yourself, your family, your children are the most important. And if you're focusing on that, you're doing it right, despite if you're not getting to all the assignments, you're missing something. Those things are secondary. And you're not alone if you're struggling. We struggle. Not every day is cupcakes and roses, but I want to make sure that they understand that if you're struggling, if you're not alone. Even the people on this call are in this meeting, it isn't easy. So if you're making the effort, you're looking out for your own well-being and your kids. You're keeping them happily engaged at whatever level and interval is the most important thing. And so just want to make sure that the parents out there know that we're not here saying rah, rah, everything is just so easy because of all the efforts that the educators are doing. We know despite those efforts, it's a similar challenge to that they're all facing. So, and thank you to them.
Thank you, Paul. That's a good reminder. We're all in this together. Appreciate that. So action items are the same as what they've been, and they will evolve as this situation evolves as well. And unless anybody has anything else, I need to make a motion to go into executive session. Anybody want to say anything before I start that process? Okay, so I'm going to read this motion now. It takes a few minutes. So I move to enter into executive session under GL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions with the Ashland Educators Association Teacher Nurse Education Support Personnel Contracts, Ashland Secretary's Contract, Ashland Schools Custodian and Maintenance Contract, or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And 3, to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Not to return to open session. Ashland Educators Association Teacher Nurse Education Support Personnel Contracts, Ashland Secretary's Contract, and Ashland Schools Custodian and Maintenance Contract. And then we will adjourn. So I will take a poll to see if you would like to enter into executive session. Mr. Terry?
You need a second first, Ms. Dosty.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Second.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, now it's been seconded. Now I'll take the poll. Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Bates?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams? Yeah, yes, sorry, Erin, you went on mute and Mr. Kendall, where are you?
Yes.
That's a yes for you. Okay, so we will now enter into executive session, not to return to open session.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Have a great night.
Thanks for participating and watching.